Hello friends, please like and subscribe to the channel and enjoy the stories. It all started in 2019 when I, a 22-year-old from a small town in the Midwest, posted a throwaway account on Reddit's r/relationships. My relationship was in a rough patch and I was seeking advice. I never expected what would come next. I shared my frustrations with the distance between me and my girlfriend, Clara. We'd met at college and our relationship had been perfect for the first year. But after graduation, she took a job in New York, while I stayed in my hometown to help my family. We tried the long-distance thing, but after a few months, the communication started fading. I was lonely, and she was busy. It felt like we were growing apart. I wrote my post in desperation, hoping to get advice on how to handle the situation. I was surprised by the outpouring of support I received. People commented, shared their own experiences, and suggested different ways to improve communication and connection. But there was one comment that stood out. It was from a user named Sophia in Seattle. She shared that she had gone through something similar with her boyfriend, who lived in another country. She gave me advice on how to balance my emotional needs and still allow Clara space to focus on her career. At first, I didn't think much of it, just another well-meaning comment. But over the next few weeks, we continued to talk. I replied to Sophia's comments with updates about my situation, and she responded with more thoughtful advice. Slowly, we began exchanging personal messages, and the conversations shifted from relationship advice to more about who we were as people. She was 24, from Seattle, an artist who had recently moved to the city after finishing her degree in graphic design. We both loved traveling, and we spent hours discussing the places we wanted to visit. Sophia was different from Clara in that she didn't have a long-term relationship to juggle. She was independent, adventurous, and incredibly warm. She made me laugh, and for the first time in months, I felt emotionally connected to someone. Months passed, and the more we talked, the more I realized that my feelings for Sophia were growing. But I didn't want to be unfair to Clara, and I tried to ignore these new emotions. I focused on my own growth and my relationship with Clara, who I still love deeply. But things weren't improving with her. We had different goals, and the distance only made it harder. Eventually, we both acknowledged that our relationship was no longer what it once had been, and we decided to break up. It was painful, but it also felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I gave myself time to heal, but I couldn't stop thinking about Sophia. One day, after several months of not communicating outside of Reddit, I finally reached out to her. I told her about the breakup, about how I was feeling, and how much I appreciated our friendship. I also admitted that my feelings for her had changed. To my surprise, Sophia admitted that she had developed feelings for me as well. We had always kept our conversations light and friendly, but now things felt different. She suggested that we meet in person to see if there was something real between us. I was nervous but excited. We had built this connection online, but would it translate into something real when we met? We decided to meet halfway between our cities in Portland, Oregon. The day we met, I was a bundle of nerves. I'd never traveled alone before, and the idea of meeting someone I only knew through messages felt surreal. But when I saw her waiting for me at the cafe, everything felt right. She was even more beautiful than I had imagined, with her short auburn hair and warm smile. The conversation flowed easily, and the chemistry was undeniable. That weekend in Portland was the start of something incredible. We spent the next year flying back and forth between Seattle and my hometown. It was difficult, but it was worth it. Each time we saw each other, we learned something new about one another. We shared our dreams, our fears, our pasts. It felt like we were building something real, something lasting. In the summer of 2021, I made the decision to move to Seattle. I found a job in the city, and I knew that I wanted to see where this relationship with Sophia could go. It wasn't easy, leaving everything I knew behind, but I was ready to take the leap. Fast forward to today. We're still together, and I feel like the luckiest person in the world. We've traveled the world, supported each other through tough times, and built a life that feels full of love and adventure. I never thought that a Reddit post about a breakup would lead to something like this, but I'm so grateful it did. And to anyone out there who feels hopeless about their relationship or about finding love. Sometimes love shows up in the most unexpected places. It might start with a simple comment on Reddit or a conversation with someone halfway across the world. But if you're open to it, love has a way of finding you when you least expect it. It all began on a Wednesday evening in early 2022 when I posted on Reddit. I had just broken up with my girlfriend of 2 years, a relationship that had been great at the start but had slowly drifted apart. She had moved away for a job, and despite trying long distance, the emotional distance between us grew. I felt a mix of confusion, sadness, and frustration, and so I went to Reddit's r/relationships to vent. I shared my feelings, explaining how I was unsure whether the breakup was the right choice, how lonely I felt, and how I wasn't sure how to navigate this new chapter of my life. I expected a handful of comments offering advice, but what happened next was something I didn't expect at all. One user, Sophia21, replied. She didn't offer generic advice like others did. She really took the time to read my post and respond with compassion and a different perspective. Sophia explained how she had been in a similar situation, and how sometimes, even though it feels like the end of the world, breakups are just part of the process of finding someone who fits your life better. Her response resonated with me more than I expected. I found myself replying to her comment with a thank you and a bit more about my life, even though I wasn't expecting much. But to my surprise, she responded again, this time asking more about my situation, how I was coping, what I was doing with my life now that I was single. Before long, we were talking in DMs, and our conversations shifted from the breakup to just life. We connected over shared interests in music, movies, and travel. She had moved from Boston to Los Angeles a few years earlier, and I was amazed at how different her life felt from mine. Sophia was funny, smart, and incredibly kind. I was drawn to her warmth and her ability to listen. It was almost surreal, how someone I had never met could make me feel heard in a way my ex never had. We spoke every day. At first, it was just messages here and there, but soon we were texting constantly, sharing memes, deep thoughts, dreams for the future. Her messages were always thoughtful, never rushed. I began to look forward to hearing from her. A month passed, and our connection had only grown. I was starting to realize I had developed feelings for Sophia, but it felt strange to acknowledge it. After all, we hadn't even met in person. I was still fresh out of a breakup, and she lived on the other side of the country. What were the chances this would turn into anything more than an online friendship? But one evening, after a particularly long conversation, I couldn't hold back anymore. I told her how much I appreciated her, how much her kindness had meant to me, and how, if I was being honest, I had developed feelings for her. There was a pause, and for a moment I thought I had ruined everything. Then she responded. "I'm glad you said that," she wrote, "because I've been feeling the same way." I was stunned. It felt like a weight had been lifted off my chest. She had been hesitant to say anything, too, not wanting to overstep or make things complicated. But now there was no denying it. We were both interested in each other, in a way that went beyond simple friendship. We talked about what this could mean. How would this work? Was it just an online thing? We agreed that we wanted to meet in person. But with her in LA and me still in New York, it felt impossible. I didn't know how we could make it work, but we were both willing to try. Fast forward to a few months later. We made plans for me to fly to LA. The excitement was overwhelming, but also nerve-wracking. What if it was awkward? What if we didn't click in person the way we did online? There were a million doubts swirling in my head. The day I landed, I was a bundle of nerves. I texted her that I had arrived at the airport, and she said she was on her way to pick me up. When I saw her walk into the arrivals hall, all of my worries melted away. She was exactly like she was online, beautiful, kind, and funny, but even more real in person. The chemistry was instant, undeniable. We spent the next 3 days together, exploring the city, eating at quirky cafes, and talking about everything. It felt like we had known each other for years. I realized that the connection we had wasn't just an online thing. It was real. She was everything I had been looking for, and more. We talked about our future, about what we wanted out of life, and how we could make a long-distance relationship work. By the end of the weekend, I knew I didn't want to let her go. I told her how I felt, and she said she felt the same way. We decided to give it a shot. Long distance, again, but this time with the intention of seeing each other as often as possible. Our relationship wasn't perfect. There were times when the distance was tough, when I wished I could just drive to her and see her face to face whenever I wanted. But we made it work. We visited each other as often as we could, and the more time we spent together, the more we realized that we were in this for the long haul. In 2023, after nearly a year of flying back and forth, we decided to take the plunge. I moved to Los Angeles, and we got an apartment together. It wasn't easy, moving across the country, leaving behind everything I knew, but I knew it was the right choice. Our relationship was stronger than ever, and I couldn't imagine my life without her. We joke now about how it all started, how a random comment on Reddit led to us meeting, falling in love, and building a life together. I'm forever grateful for that post I made, and for the person who took the time to reply. It might have started as a story about heartbreak, but it turned into something beautiful. A love story that, against all odds, grew from the internet to reality. So, to anyone who feels like love is impossible, or that the right person is too far away, sometimes the universe works in strange ways. Love can come from the most unexpected places, even from a simple Reddit comment. I never thought a random comment on Reddit would change the course of my life, but that's exactly what happened. It all started in late 2019. I had just gone through a really difficult breakup with my girlfriend of 3 years, Claire. We had met in college, and everything seemed perfect. But after we both graduated, things started to fall apart. I moved back to my hometown, and Claire stayed in the city for her job. We tried long distance for a while, but it was hard. Slowly, we stopped communicating as much. Our texts became fewer, our calls shorter. Then one day, Claire told me she needed space, and a week later, we broke up. I was heartbroken. It wasn't just the end of a relationship, it felt like the end of a chapter in my life. I wasn't sure how to move forward, how to deal with the emptiness. I felt so alone, like I was living in a world full of people, but still completely disconnected. In my attempt to distract myself, I started browsing Reddit, mostly in subreddits like r/relationships, reading other people's stories of heartbreak, trying to make sense of what I was feeling. One evening, I saw a post titled, "I feel so lost after my breakup. How do I move on?" I clicked on it. The post was from a user named Maya24, and the story resonated with me immediately. Maya described how she had been in a similar situation, a long-term relationship that had ended unexpectedly. She talked about feeling alone, confused, and unsure of how to move forward, just like I was feeling. But the most striking part of her post was when she said, "I just want someone to talk to. I feel like no one really understands what I'm going through." I don't know why, but something in me felt compelled to respond. I replied, offering words of comfort and advice, telling her that it would get better with time and that she wasn't alone. I shared a bit about my own experience and how I was learning to deal with the pain of my breakup. What happened next was something I didn't expect. Maya replied to my comment, thanking me for my kind words. We started talking through private messages, just checking in with each other. She was kind, open, and easy to talk to. The more we talked, the more I found myself looking forward to hearing from her. Maya was funny, warm, and insightful, and I started to realize that our conversations made me feel better. For the first time in months, I didn't feel so alone. We shared stories about our lives. Maya was 27, living in San Francisco, working as a photographer. She was passionate about her work, but her personal life had recently been turned upside down by her breakup. We found that we had a lot in common, both introverted, both huge fans of indie films, and both struggling with finding ourselves after the end of our relationships. After a few weeks of messaging, we agreed to have a phone call. I was nervous, but also excited. We had talked for hours through text, but this felt different. This was real time, real voices. When I heard her voice for the first time, I couldn't stop smiling. She had a warm, melodic tone, and it was like we had been friends for years. The conversation flowed effortlessly. We talked about everything. Our childhoods, our favorite books, how we were both trying to rebuild our lives after the breakups. It was so easy to talk to her, like we had known each other forever. We continued calling each other every few days, our connection growing stronger with each conversation. There was a chemistry between us, something neither of us had expected. I found myself thinking about her all the time, eager to hear about her day, or share something funny that had happened to me. It felt like we were building something real, something that went beyond just friendship. After about 2 months of talking, Maya suggested we meet in person. She had been planning a photography project in my city, and she thought it would be a good opportunity for us to finally meet. I was nervous, but also thrilled at the thought of seeing her face to face. We planned to meet at a cafe near where I lived, a cozy little spot with great coffee. The day we were supposed to meet, I was a bundle of nerves. I wasn't sure what to expect. What if we didn't have the same connection in person? What if it was awkward? But when I saw Maya walk into the cafe, everything else faded away. She was even more beautiful than I had imagined, with her short, curly hair and a smile that made my heart race. I felt like I was in a dream. We sat down and talked for hours, like we had done on the phone, but this time it was real. We laughed, we shared stories, and we both realized that this was more than just a friendship. The connection between us was undeniable. By the end of the evening, we both knew that we had found something special. After that day, we continued to meet up whenever we could. We went on dates, took long walks in the park, and spent hours talking about everything. It felt like we were building something beautiful, something genuine. We had both been through heartbreak, but we were finding new joy in each other's company. It was a slow burn, but it was worth it. Fast forward to a year later. Maya moved to my city, and we got a small apartment together. It wasn't always easy, adjusting to living with someone, balancing our busy schedules, navigating the ups and downs of life. But every challenge made us stronger. We supported each other through difficult times, celebrated our successes, and built a life together that felt like home. Now here we are, 2 years after that first Reddit comment. I never imagined that something as simple as reaching out to a stranger on the internet would lead me to the love of my life. But it did. Maya has become my best friend, my partner, and my greatest love. We still talk about the first time we met, and how everything felt so natural, like it was meant to be. So to anyone reading this, wondering if love can come from the most unexpected places, it absolutely can. Sometimes, love finds you when you least expect it, when you're open to new connections, even when you're not looking for them. If I had never replied to Maya's post on Reddit, we never would have met. But I'm so glad I did, because she's my person. I was just an ordinary guy scrolling through Reddit late one night in 2021, trying to distract myself from the overwhelming sadness that had become my daily companion. My life had recently been turned upside down after a painful breakup with my girlfriend of 4 years. Rachel and I had met in college, and for a while, everything was perfect. We had an amazing connection, shared interests, and our relationship felt like it was heading towards something serious, something permanent. But as the years passed and we both graduated, the cracks in our relationship began to show. She got a job offer in a different city, and we tried to make long-distance work. I'm sure anyone who's been in a long-distance relationship knows that it can be exhausting, and for us, it just wasn't enough to keep us together. We started to drift apart, and eventually, we called it quits. I was heartbroken. I felt like I had lost my best friend and my soulmate all at once. I didn't know how to move on or where to begin. So I turned to Reddit. I posted on r/relationships, hoping to find some comfort or advice. My post wasn't anything special, just a rant about how lost I felt and how difficult it was to let go of someone who had been such an integral part of my life. What happened next is something I never expected. A few hours after posting, I received a message from a Redditor with the username EmmaTheU. She had replied to my post with a thoughtful comment, offering some words of encouragement. She shared that she had been through something similar, and her message was full of empathy. She said, "I know it doesn't feel like it now, but time heals. It may seem impossible to imagine life without them, but you'll get through it. And you'll find happiness again." I thanked her for the kind words and, out of nowhere, decided to message her privately. I figured she probably wouldn't respond, but I wanted to let her know how much her comment had meant to me. To my surprise, she replied almost immediately. We started talking in DMs. At first, it was just small talk, but as we got to know each other better, our conversations began to feel more natural. Emma was funny, insightful, and compassionate. She shared her own story of heartbreak and how she, too, was still healing from a past relationship. We connected over our shared experiences and realized that we had a lot in common. Both of us had been in long-term relationships that ended unexpectedly, and both of us were trying to find our footing again. Our conversations became more frequent, and soon we were talking every day. We began discussing everything from movies and music to our favorite books and hobbies. I felt an unexpected bond forming with her, and what started as a way to distract myself from the pain of my breakup soon turned into something deeper. Emma was someone I could talk to about anything, and I began to look forward to our chats every day. After a few weeks of messaging, Emma suggested we hop on a video call. I was a bit nervous at first. What if we didn't have the same connection in person? But I agreed, and we set a date. The day of our video call, I was a bundle of nerves. Would she look the same as her profile picture? What if the conversation was awkward? But as soon as I saw her face on the screen, all my anxieties disappeared. She was just as beautiful and kind as I had imagined, and the conversation flowed so easily between us. We laughed, we talked about everything under the sun, and before I knew it, hours had passed. It felt so natural, like we had known each other forever. After that first call, we continued talking every day, and I started to realize that I was developing feelings for Emma. But I didn't know if she felt the same way. We lived on opposite sides of the country. She was in California, and I was in New York. It seemed impossible to think that this could turn into anything real. But then one night, after a particularly deep conversation about our hopes for the future, Emma asked me, "Do you ever think about us? Like, what this could be if we were closer?" My heart skipped a beat. I wasn't sure how to respond, but I knew that my feelings for her were real. "I do," I said. "I think about it all the time. But I don't know how this could work. You're in California, and I'm here. Long distance is hard, and I'm still healing from my last relationship." She paused for a moment, then said, "I get it, but I think there's something special here. I think we should give it a shot. Even if it's long distance, we can figure it out together." Those words changed everything. We both agreed that we would take a chance on each other. It wasn't going to be easy, but we were both willing to try. From that moment on, we started making plans to visit each other. We FaceTimed every night, sent each other little surprises in the mail, and worked hard to stay connected despite the distance. A few months later, I flew to California to meet her in person. The day I saw Emma for the first time felt like a dream. I had spent so many months getting to know her, and now I was standing in front of her. She was even more amazing in person. Her smile, the way she laughed, her energy, it was everything I had hoped for and more. We spent the weekend together, exploring the city and getting to know each other even more. It was perfect. After that visit, things only got stronger. We took turns visiting each other every few months, and with each visit, our bond deepened. We talked about our future together, and it became clear that we both wanted the same things. We supported each other through our individual struggles, celebrated our successes, and slowly built a life together. By the end of 2022, I made the decision to move to California to be with her. It was a huge step, but it felt right. We found a cozy apartment in San Francisco and started building a life together. Every day felt like a new adventure, and despite the challenges of living together for the first time, we made it work. Today, over 2 years since we first connected on Reddit, Emma and I are inseparable. We're planning to get married next year, and every day, I'm amazed at how lucky I am to have found her. I never could have imagined that a simple comment on Reddit would lead to the love of my life, but here we are. So, if you're out there wondering if love can come from unexpected places, I'm here to tell you it can. Sometimes, love finds you when you least expect it, and the connections you make, even in the most random ways, can turn into something real and beautiful. Posted by you/Heartfelt Wanderer. I've debated sharing this for a long time, but something about today makes me feel like it's time. Maybe because I'm finally in a place where I can look back at everything and smile rather than feeling the weight of it all. Or maybe because, after all this time, I'm realizing just how much I've changed and how much my love story means to me. It all started almost 3 years ago, in a random Reddit thread. I was going through a tough breakup, one of those that completely messes with your head. It wasn't just the end of a relationship, it was the end of an idea, a future I had built in my head. I was feeling lost, disoriented, and unsure if I would ever trust anyone again. I decided to take a break from dating apps, and for the first time in months, I found myself scrolling through random Reddit threads. Something about the anonymity felt comforting, like I could just be myself without any expectations. One late night, I stumbled into a thread in the True Off My Chest subreddit. It was filled with people spilling their raw thoughts, sharing their deepest insecurities, and just being vulnerable with one another. I read one post about a person feeling trapped in their own sadness, and I couldn't help but respond. I left a long comment about how sometimes it's okay to not have all the answers, how it's okay to be broken for a while, and that healing is a slow process. I don't even know why I went that deep, but it felt good to be heard. Then, to my surprise, I got a message from the OP, a girl named Ava. She thanked me for my response, saying it made her feel less alone. We started chatting, at first just about life and the randomness of Reddit, but soon the conversation turned to deeper topics. She was in a similar spot to me, just gotten out of a long-term relationship and still reeling from the emotional mess that came with it. The more we talked, the more I realized how much we had in common. We exchanged messages every day. At first, it was about life, the silly things that made us laugh, or the things we were passionate about. But soon, we began sharing our pasts, our insecurities, our dreams, our fears. And the funny thing was, it didn't feel like an internet conversation. It felt real. We didn't exchange photos or any identifying information for months. There was something comforting about that anonymity. We were just two people sharing pieces of themselves without any pressure or judgment. It was raw. It was real. And slowly, it became something more than I expected. One night, I got a message from Ava asking if I'd ever want to meet in person. My heart did a little flip. Of course, I had thought about it, but I never imagined it would actually happen. I was terrified. Meeting someone from the internet was a huge leap, but the thought of meeting her, someone who had, in a short time, become a huge part of my life, was more terrifying than staying stuck in the comfort of online anonymity. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop in a small town halfway between us. She told me she'd be wearing a red scarf, and I promised I'd be the guy nervously pacing by the window. That's how I felt, nervous, like everything depended on this one moment. I remember seeing her walk in, and my breath caught in my chest. She was even more beautiful than I had imagined, but what struck me the most was the way she smiled. It was the kind of smile that made everything in the world seem a little bit brighter. The conversation was easy, just like it had been online, but it was different. There was a realness to it, a chemistry that was undeniable. We spent hours talking about everything and nothing, laughing at the same jokes, and sharing little pieces of our hearts. When we said goodbye that night, I didn't want it to end. I kissed her on the cheek, and as she walked away, I felt something shift inside me. From that moment, everything changed. We began seeing each other more often, exploring cities together, cooking meals, and discovering new hobbies we could enjoy together. The more time we spent together, the more I realized that this wasn't just some fleeting connection. Ava and I were building something that was real, something beautiful. It's been 2 years since that first coffee shop meeting, and I'm still amazed at how much I've changed, how much we've changed. Our relationship hasn't been perfect, and we've had our fair share of ups and downs, but we've always been there for each other. And that's what makes this love so special. It's the way we support each other, the way we push each other to grow, and the way we still get excited about spending time together. Ava has become my home. I know this sounds cheesy, but it's true. She's my safe place, my confidant, and my best friend. I never thought I would find someone who understands me like she does. I never thought I would trust someone again after everything that happened before. But here we are, living our lives and looking forward to a future I never imagined. I still think about how all of this started. Two people, strangers at first, connected by something as simple as a Reddit post. It's strange how life works sometimes, how you can feel lost and hopeless, and then, out of nowhere, find the person who will change everything. So here's my message to anyone reading this. Sometimes love finds you in the most unexpected places. Sometimes it's not in the grand gestures, but in the little things. The late-night conversations, the messages that make you feel less alone. Take a chance. Put yourself out there. You never know who might be waiting for you, even if it's someone on the other side of a screen. Thank you, Reddit, for bringing me to the love of my life. I'm forever grateful. Met someone on Reddit while both of us were recovering from bad breakups. Started as a simple online friendship, but it turned into something beautiful. Now we're in love and living a life together. You never know where love might come from. Posted by Youth the Heart of Redemption. I honestly don't even know where to start. It's funny because I'm usually the one reading these kinds of posts, never imagining I'd be the one writing one. But here I am, sharing something I never thought would happen to me. The story of how I met the love of my life on Reddit. It was about 2 years ago, and I had just gotten out of a long-term relationship. To say I was devastated would be an understatement. I was heartbroken, lost, and convinced I would never find anyone who truly understood me again. It was the kind of breakup that shakes your soul, and I spent most of my days either at work or binge-watching TV shows to drown out the pain. One night, feeling particularly lonely and lost, I decided to go on Reddit, hoping to distract myself. I found myself scrolling through posts in the r/relationships subreddit, reading about other people's struggles with love, relationships, and heartbreak. I don't know why, but I ended up commenting on a post about someone feeling like they'd never find love again after a breakup. It wasn't anything profound, just a message saying that it might take time, but there's always hope. I signed off with something like, "You're never as alone as you think." To my surprise, I got a reply from someone named Lily the next day. Her message wasn't just a simple thanks or "I agree," but a heartfelt response. She said she had been feeling the same way, lost after a breakup, unsure of where to go next. Our conversation continued in the comment section, and then it moved to private messages. We connected over our shared experience of trying to navigate life after heartbreak. Lily was different from anyone I had met before. She was funny, compassionate, and had this way of making everything feel lighter. We quickly became online friends, talking almost every day. At first, it was just casual chat, funny memes, articles we found interesting, and late-night discussions about everything under the sun. But soon, we were talking about our pasts, our dreams, our fears, our struggles. It felt like we were opening up in a way that was so natural, it was almost scary. After a few weeks of chatting, Lily asked if I'd be open to talking on the phone. I was hesitant at first. The idea of speaking to someone I had only known through messages felt nerve-wracking, but something about her made me feel comfortable. So I agreed. The first time we spoke, it was like I had known her for years. Our voices blended together in a way that felt so natural, like we had been friends for a lifetime. We laughed, we shared our stories, and somehow, even though we had never met in person, it felt so real. There was an undeniable connection, one that wasn't just based on attraction, but on something deeper. We understood each other in a way that I had never experienced before. As the weeks went by, we started talking more often. Every day felt like a new adventure, getting to know Lily better. We'd send each other random texts, share videos, and talk about our days. I found myself looking forward to our conversations, to hearing her voice, and to getting lost in her words. It was like falling for someone all over again, but this time, it was different. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't forced. It just felt right. One evening, about 2 months into our friendship, Lily surprised me with an idea. She suggested that we meet in person. I was immediately nervous. We lived on opposite sides of the country, and meeting someone you've only known through a screen is a big leap. But at the same time, I couldn't deny how much I wanted to meet her. The connection between us had become undeniable, and I felt a pull to see if it could translate into real life. We made plans to meet in a small cafe in my city. She would be arriving on a Friday afternoon. I remember pacing the cafe, nervously checking my phone every few seconds. My heart was racing. What if it didn't work out? What if the chemistry we had online didn't translate into real life? But then I saw her. She walked in wearing a simple blue dress, her brown hair flowing in soft waves around her shoulders. When she looked up and saw me, her face lit up with the most radiant smile. I couldn't help but smile back, my nerves fading away. She walked over to my table, and in that moment, it felt like everything had led to this. The connection, the long conversations, the late-night talks, it was all real. She was real. We spent hours talking that afternoon, not once running out of things to say. It was the kind of conversation where time seems to stand still. There were no awkward pauses or forced interactions. It felt easy, like we had been doing this forever. That was the moment I realized I was falling for her. It wasn't just the way she looked, though she was stunning. It was the way she made me feel, heard, understood, valued. It was the way she spoke with such passion, the way she laughed at my jokes, and the way we just fit together. We spent the weekend together, exploring the city, visiting parks, and having deep conversations. We laughed until our stomachs hurt, and we shared things about our lives that we had never told anyone else. It felt like the beginning of something special, something that could turn into a lasting love. From that weekend forward, our relationship blossomed. We kept in touch every day, flying back and forth to visit each other whenever we could. It was a whirlwind, but it felt right. We had both been through heartbreak before, but now we had found something worth fighting for. A year later, Lily moved closer to me, and we moved in together. It was one of the best decisions I've ever made. Our relationship has only gotten stronger with time. Sure, we've had challenges, but we've always been able to overcome them together. And here we are today, 2 years after that first Reddit comment. I'm still amazed that something so simple, a response to someone's post, led to the love of my life. If I had never commented on that thread, if I hadn't taken the chance to open up to a stranger, I might never have met Lily. It's crazy to think that a random interaction on Reddit changed my life forever. I guess the moral of the story is that sometimes love doesn't come when you expect it. Sometimes it comes in the form of a stranger you meet on the internet. And sometimes it leads to something more beautiful than you ever imagined. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know this. I'm incredibly lucky to have found my person, and I'm thankful every day that Reddit brought us together. TLDR, I met the love of my life through a random comment on Reddit. We started out as friends, then moved to phone calls, and eventually met in person. 2 years later, we're living together, and it all started with a comment. Love can come from the most unexpected places. I've always loved reading love stories, especially the ones that feel so real and relatable. But I never thought I'd be writing one of my own, let alone sharing it with all of you on Reddit. I've thought about this moment for a long time. What I would say, how I would explain it, but even now, I'm not sure I have the right words to capture the magic of it all. It's strange, honestly. It feels like just yesterday that I was sitting in front of my computer, thinking about how I'd never find someone who really understood me. But then I found her. It all started a little over a year ago. I had just gone through a painful breakup, the kind that shakes your core and makes you question everything you thought you knew about love. I didn't want to date anymore. In fact, I had no interest in ever being in another relationship. I was just tired. I wanted to focus on myself, heal, and forget about the mess I had just gone through. So I started spending a lot of time on Reddit, mostly in the r/true off my chest and r/relationships subreddits, just scrolling through posts, reading stories of people going through similar experiences. It was comforting to know that I wasn't alone, that there were others out there who were also struggling, trying to figure things out. But I never expected anything to come from it. It was just a way for me to pass the time. Then, one evening, I came across a post that caught my attention. The title was, "I'm scared that I'll never love again after everything I've been through." Something about those words felt like they had been pulled straight from my own heart. I opened the post and saw a woman pouring her soul into it, expressing how she had given everything to a past relationship, only to be left broken and unsure if she could ever trust someone again. Her vulnerability resonated deeply with me. I couldn't help but reply, even though I wasn't expecting much. I just wanted to say that I understood that sometimes love comes when we least expect it, and it's okay to heal slowly. A few hours later, I received a message from her. Her name was Ella. She thanked me for the kind words, and we began talking more. At first, it was just friendly banter, but then our conversations turned more personal. We started sharing the details of our lives, our insecurities, and what we were both looking for in the future. We quickly realized that we had so much in common, not just in our experiences, but in the way we saw the world. We both loved art, had a strange sense of humor, and both felt like we were at a crossroads in life. We continued chatting every day, sharing our thoughts, dreams, and frustrations. It felt natural, like we were meant to talk. There was something comforting about the way she responded, how her words made me feel like I wasn't alone in this world. We never talked about meeting in person. After all, we lived in different states, and our conversations were comfortable in their own right. But I'd be lying if I didn't think about it every now and then. One day, after a few weeks of texting and calling each other, Ella asked if I wanted to meet. I was hesitant, nervous, and unsure. What if it was awkward? What if the connection we had online didn't translate to real life? But then, I remembered how much I had come to care for her, how much I looked forward to our conversations, and how much I felt like I could trust her. So I said yes. We decided to meet halfway between our two cities. The day before I was supposed to leave, I could hardly sleep. I was filled with excitement, but also dread. What if she didn't like me in person? What if it was all too much, too soon? But when I finally saw her, standing there in a coffee shop wearing a soft, cozy sweater, I felt like I had known her forever. Her smile was so warm, and her eyes were exactly like I imagined, kind and full of understanding. The first thing she did when she saw me was give me a hug. A hug that was so natural and comforting it felt like coming home. I remember feeling like all the uncertainty, all the fear I had felt in the days leading up to the meeting, just melted away. We spent hours talking, laughing, and getting to know each other in ways that went far beyond the screens we had been talking to each other through. I felt like I was talking to my best friend, but with the kind of connection I had never had with anyone before. From that day forward, we kept seeing each other. We would visit each other whenever we could, taking turns traveling to see one another. We spent weekends exploring new cities, eating too much food, and sharing secrets we had never shared with anyone else. The more time we spent together, the more I realized how deep my feelings for her had grown. This wasn't just some fleeting online connection. This was something real. Eventually, I made the decision to move to her city. It wasn't an easy decision, but I knew it was the right one. Ella and I had built something special, something worth taking a risk for. It's been 6 months since I moved, and I can honestly say it was the best decision I've ever made. Our relationship has grown stronger every day. We've laughed together, cried together, and faced challenges together. But through it all, we've built something that's just right. Looking back at everything, I still can't believe it all started with a comment on Reddit. It seems so unlikely, so strange, but here we are, planning for a future together. I'm so grateful for Reddit, for bringing us together in such an unexpected way. If I hadn't replied to that post, if I hadn't taken the chance to connect with her, I never would have met the woman who makes me feel like the luckiest person alive. So, if you're reading this and you're feeling hopeless about love, just know that it can find you in the most unexpected ways. Sometimes, love doesn't happen on your terms. It happens when you least expect it, when you open your heart to the possibility of something real. And even though we're still figuring things out, I have no doubt that what we have is something worth holding on to forever. TLDR. Met a woman on Reddit after replying to a post about heartbreak. We started talking every day, eventually met in person, and built a deep connection. I moved to her city, and now we're planning a future together. Reddit brought us together in a way I never imagined,